Hey everybody, Jay Weidner, Reality Check. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe and all that other stuff so we can get more successful. And I'm probably not the best friend of some of the people at this network, and you never know when they're going to boot me. I got everything saved though, so that's good. I've been all over the world and been on every continent but one. And I've always wanted to go to this continent and I have never been able to visit. But that continent is Antarctica. And I even at one time, about 4 years ago, posed as a wealthy American businessman whose bucket list included taking a jet ride from Melbourne, Australia to Johannesburg across Antarctica. And I called every private jet service in South Africa and every private jet service in Australia and put $100,000 bonus on top of whatever they wanted to charge me if they would do this. And I would have actually, if I'd gotten somebody to do it, I would have gotten somebody wealthy to finance it, put cameras all over and everything. But they told me you could only fly 50 miles in and then you had to turn around and go back. So you can't fly over Australia, even though it's faster to fly over Australia than the way they go now. So I don't know. So anyway, I've been really interested in Antarctica. We know that Cliff High has talked a lot about artifacts being discovered in Antarctica. And then I was watching Rex Bear show, Leak Project, a few months ago. And there was a show about Antarctica with my guest, Eric Hecker. Hey, Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jay. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, so Eric, you've actually been to that fabled southern continent, right?
That's correct. In 2010, 2011, I did a summer and winter season consecutively. So I spent an entire year at the South Pole Station, one celestial day from the perspective of the sun.
Right. And where can you tell us where you were at? What base or?
Adamson Scott South Pole Station.
Oh, wow. Well, you're all the way almost to the South Pole then, right?
Precise South Pole, the one and only, 90 degrees south.
Wow. Oh, I have a lot of questions. First off,
Fair enough.
uh, uh, just like clear things up for people who are falling under the spell of the flat Earth theories. When you looked up at the sky at night, since you were there when it was night all the time, you saw constellations that you can't see from the northern hemisphere, right?
I, I am not an astronomer, Jay. I suspect you are 100% right, but I would not be the expert on the topic of the stars. I can tell you they were dense, they were beautiful. I can tell you it was certainly dark and there was no sun. I can tell you that certainly from the perspective of 90 degrees south on this round globe of a planet, I spent a determined period of time with no sun observable. So
Wow,
there's not
wow.
a flat earther's spiel that I've been given that can undermine my experience. And nobody should ask me to take my firsthand experience and throw it out the window for someone who wasn't there.
So was there like a lot of activity in the area, or was it pretty or just around where you were? Or what I'm looking for is how about planes flying around above you or anything like that?
In the summer season, it was a fury of activity 24 hours a day. Planes coming and going, C-130 Hercules and Twin Otters, some DC-3s. I forget if they were threes or nines now. I'm not good with the numbers. I can picture it in my head. But they were hot rodded. They were old-fashioned planes that were hot rodded for the Antarctic conditions,
Right.
special props and all kinds of accoutrement. So not every plane can go over there first and foremost. So that's one of the issues that people don't understand is that it's really Mother Nature is the obstacle and the lack of logistics. So it's a poor choice. I mean, why are you going to fly your plane in an area that A, is highly detrimental to it, and B, if anything goes wrong, that's it. It's a wrap. There is no resources to come help you. So it's an irresponsible flight plan.
Yet
Is really what it
they
boils
fly over
down
the
to.
North Pole, don't they?
Say that again?
They fly over the North Pole.
They do, but everyone's closer, I guess. Resources are more
Yeah, that's
available
true.
if something goes wrong.
Yeah. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, that was one of the interesting things when I flew from McMurdo to the South Pole, going over the Transantarctic Mountains and stuff like that. I mean, when you look out, the term that they used in the lunar program was magnificent desolation. And I believe that's what Buzz said when he got to South Pole, was that it was pretty much the same darn thing. And when you're out and about in the midst of that scarcity of resource, it's tangible. You can feel it. I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. If this plane goes down, if you're lucky to survive the crash, the ability for them to rescue you is limited to the point that I don't know anybody that's ever been rescued in Antarctica when they've had an issue, except for Shackleton in that amazing story.
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite stories.
Absolutely. Yep.
All time. Love the movie too, Endurance. Great movie.
An amazing tale.
Amazing. And actually the tale of the guys that got left behind is almost more amazing than Shackleton's story.
Well, yes, it's so many directions of they don't make men like this anymore.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's a great story. One of my favorites. If you don't know that story, Shackleton went down to the South Pole, and they got into a shipwreck. The ship got iced in, and then slowly destroyed. And then Shackleton and his crew had to hike all the way to the ocean. I believe that him and a couple of guys had to go over an ice sheet to get to help. And somehow they made it. And then Shackleton got back to England, raised money, and came back and saved his crew members. Like, amazing story, absolutely amazing story, just amazing. And everything, even the story of the first guy to go to the South Pole. Who is that?
Roald Amundsen.
Yeah, no, he's not the guy that died there. No, who's the guy that died there?
Robert Falcon Scott died in the
right.
effort. He and Amundsen were racing to get to the pole. Amundsen won, and Scott lost his life trying.
Yeah, that's a tragic story too. Yeah, so
his last journal entry, I believe Scott's last journal entry was that they're going to stick it out to the end, which can't be far away.
Yeah, right. Wow. So can you describe to us what it's like being outside in the southern hemisphere winter? I mean, what is that like?
The winter season on a clear day, I would say, is potentially the most beautiful view a human being could experience on this planet.
Really?
South Pole Station it's on top of a glacier. So it's at 10,300 feet actually.
Wow.
And there is not a mountain or anything to be seen in any direction for 360 degrees for hundreds of miles. So there's no obstruction to the view. You can simply turn your back to face the buildings so that you're looking away from the camp. And at this point, you can just take your view, you can raise it a couple of degrees, at which point the entire world drops out of your field of view, and the only thing that you see is space. It's like you're in space. And the density and the clusters and the colors are really beyond description, and truth be told, impossible to film in a way that represents what you're seeing. You can play with the cameras and you can do tricks of light to capture an image of what it like, and you could say this is a photograph of the stars taken at the wintertime at the South Pole. That's true, but it does not look like what I saw. And it's the same for the auroras. What I witnessed, you can't capture on camera. You capture something, but it's of little value to what you experience when you're there.
Wow. So you had really great auroras and
Oh yes, they were amazing. They would, in a way, it makes me think of what the native Alaskans up here say up north, that there's like a life to them because there were times that it seemed like they were following you in a way, and there was also, I called it a sizzling. There was this sound
yeah.
that was different. There was something going on. There was some sound going on sometimes
No,
that
it's
was
followers of my show know that I'm a big uh, um, follower of plasma physics, and
excellent.
that's what
Same
that
here.
is, and that's the electricity that you're hearing, and you're seeing the plasma, striking the ionosphere, and uh, I really know this sounds crazy, but I actually think that the plasma does have some kind of sentience.
I
Um,
don't find that crazy at all. I mean, there's life in pretty much every dynamic that we look in Mother Nature. Everywhere we look, we find something going on, and there seems to be more organization than we care to give credence to.
yeah, and I think I don't know if you there's like people who take pictures of these things that are in the sky using specially adapted cameras. I have them. They shoot ultraviolet or infrared, and something that you can't see with your naked eye is that they're on the camera in the picture, right? And there's more than you would imagine of these things, and they're invisible to us. But if you can get beyond the light spectrum, and I haven't done the sound spectrum yet, but again, the reports that you hear of people who are maybe out in the woods and all of a sudden they see this like glowing ball, you know, again,
Mm-hmm.
just like you described, there's a sizzling sound. The balls would follow them while they're hiking, and like know it, they're there, and it felt like it was, it knew that they were there. And it's an incredible new emerging science that is super exciting. And I wish I only saw the aurora borealis once in my life, and I wish I could go back north now and see it again, because with the lockdowns and everything, I don't know if I'll ever be able to even go that direction anymore. So, but I have a feeling with the onset of the Maunder minimum that we're now going into, that we're going to start seeing the aurora borealis further south. Maybe not now, but in a few years. So we'll see.
Hmm.
So you were like, what were you actually doing for? You must be working for the government, right? It must be the U.S. government that has a financing the outpost, right?
It is technically under the National Science Foundation is the financier officially.
Is there
And
any military involved with it that you
they
know
basically run the logistics lines, so the flights and everything involved with that were Air Force or Air Guard was my understanding. I was
of?
hired at the time. The contract from the National Science Foundation was being subcontracted out to Raytheon Polar Services at the time. They're now defunct since the contract went to Lockheed Martin, but that was my employer at the time.
Wow. And what do you guys do? You work like 8 hours a day, and then, or was it a longer day, or?
You know something? I think it was I think it was 9 hours a day, 6 days a week was the official shift.
Right.
But I was, I'm on maintenance and it's the South Pole, so the problems don't care if you're on the clock or not. So we fix things when they broke, no matter what. I mean, that was a given, and alarms would
See,
trigger
that
quite
happens a lot.
regularly for things that were failing, and we would, joke around and stuff like that. But you would have to hurry up because Mother Nature, once a system failed there, Mother Nature started encroaching really fast. So expedience on the task mattered a lot, and your exposure, everything mattered on the task, and it took professionalism to get things done rapidly, correctly. And we could do it jokingly, but we still understood it was serious. We're talking like primary water systems are kicking out, things like that.
So where
So
did you get your water?
from the ice.
So you're just melting
Yeah.
ice?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have what's called a rod well, which is short for a Rodriguez well. And basically, what we do is we have like a picture like a hothouse hut, almost so to say, a small structure that we can slide across the top of the ice that has a boiler room in it and a big, large, reel system and heat exchangers and stuff. So the boiler fires up, hits a plate heat exchanger, shoots down through a hose to a like a steam drill that we bore through the ice, and that makes a hole, a tunnel that goes in the ice, say down about 500 feet, and then they switch the direction on the jet to make it like a big ball down there. So imagine like an upside down water tower shaped item getting carved into the ice, and then all of the ice that was there previously that gets melted condenses and drops down into that bulb because the volume is now bigger than the volume of the water. The area of the hole is bigger than the volume of the water that was previously the ice, and we reduce it so it gets to about 500,000 gallons of water. And then at that point, they use the boiler and a recirculating system to keep adding energy to keep the water in water form. And then we have a submersible pump that we suck that water out of there and use as our potable water.
Whoa, that's ingenious.
It was invented by a guy, his last name was Rodriguez. I forget his first name, and that's why it's called the Rodriguez well.
That's
Rodwell.
amazing.
And when I was there, they had 3 Rodwells, effectively. And then when the Rodwell is evacuated of all of the volume of water, we then run a waste line to it, and then it's called an outfall, and it receives all the waste.
Wow, that's very efficient. Yeah, so it's what does it get down to at its coldest?
The coldest I saw, I think, was probably minus 103, minus 104
Wow.
ambient.
Yeah, I talked to a guy once. He told me that he was there, and it was something like that. The temperature, he was at somewhere in that, and maybe on that base. This is like 20 years ago, and he told me that he poured an ice cube tray full of whiskey, and he set it outside the door and closed the door. He looked at his watch, and in 3 minutes, he opened the door up, and it was completely frozen.
Yep.
Yep.
It's interesting info. So we had the ice tunnels there for logistics. We store food and stuff like that underneath, besides far away from the station. So there's, certain stuff that's closer proximity. It's just staging of gear, basically. But down there, I mean, there's 10 years worth of food stored down there, and all kinds of supplies. I mean, crankcase oil, antifreeze, all of the things that we need get stored in deep cold storage at some point.
Really?
Everything freezes, okay? I mean, every kind of booze, every kind of oil, lubricant, fuel, you name it, except for one thing. And I highly suggest people stay away from it.
What?
Chocolate syrup.
No way.
Yep. Like Hershey's chocolate syrup like you put on your ice cream and your drinks. It doesn't freeze in the ice tunnels at the South Pole. That scares the hell out of me.
Should. I'm never eating that crap again.
I don't go near that. I when I see people eating it, I'm like, don't eat that. Just don't eat that.
Oh my God. I wonder what's in it.
Me too.
Something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thought popped in my head one day at South Pole, and I just asked the guy that runs the materials. I said, is there anything down there that doesn't freeze? And one day he came up and he says, you know something? He goes, I found something.
So how many people are there when the weather's nice? Would you say?
In the summer season, when I was there, we were pushing record numbers. We were, I believe, fluctuating between 275 and 280.
And what were these people doing mostly?
Most of the time, that was the completions team for the Ice Cube neutrino detector. The season that I was there, the transition from 2010 to 2011 summer winter season was the completion of both the elevated station and the Ice Cube neutrino detector, and they were going from construction to operations and maintenance. So I was effectively the first team for operations and maintenance of the elevated station and the Ice Cube neutrino detector.
So if with 270 people, that's pretty easy to keep track pretty much of of everyone. I mean, there can't be much secret going on with, I mean,
I had no idea who anybody was or what they were doing at
yeah.
all. It could have been extremely compartmentalized. Most people were so covered with gear, I think never even saw their face or one iota of skin.
Well, of course, that makes sense. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, I found it. Yeah, I found that it was actually a very great place if you wanted to be inconspicuous about who you were and what you were up to.
So they could be doing anything then. And
Absolutely. Yep.
and so you're saying that they're are they digging, they must be digging tunnels underneath the base and the ice. If you got this huge glacier, you'd be crazy if you had, apparently they have the ability because they're doing these wells. So
Oh, absolutely. There's a substantial tunnel system underneath the elevated station and some of the outbuildings. The rod wells. I mean, there's tunnels going almost to the bottom of every rod. To every rod well. So there's quite a bit of tunnels under there with piping and lighting and emergency egress stations that cut through the ice and go back to the surface. I believe at some point the tunnels go as deep as 60 feet below surface.
and how big is the base, would you say? Like, is it 5 miles in radius or 3 miles?
I would say, yeah, maybe overall, I would say maybe 2 to 3 miles in diameter.
Right. And how many planes would come in on a day?
Oh, a whole bunch. Sometimes it would seem almost nonstop. Oftentimes we would have a batch of Hercs parked, waiting for whatever reason, and which was the pilots were scared. Nobody ever wanted to get stuck at South Pole, so they would never turn their engines off. So the Hercs they would line up and park on the station side of the skiway, right next to what we would call the summer camp, where the Jamesways were, the tents that we would sleep in the summertime, and they just sat there idling 24 hours a day. And you got used to sleeping with that. When I finished my summer season and got into the elevated station for the winter season, I was having trouble sleeping because there wasn't a row of Hercs parked next to my head.
Wow.
I got used to it.
So there's not much traffic in the winter then.
Nothing, zero. I believe it was February 14th, 2011 was in my winter season, I believe, the last flight in. And then you don't get any more until I think it was the end of October, middle to end of October. And at that point, you're on your own.
And how many people are there in the winter?
We had 49 for our winter season.
Wow. Is there any other, was there any other things going on that you knew were happening, but nobody really ever addressed or talked about?
Absolutely, and I've been disclosing that. There's it's a very peculiar facility, and I think you'll get a kick out of this. You're familiar with ELF?
Yep.
Okay, so the ELF system at the South Pole Station is completely up and running, even though they state that it's de-energized. I was a maintenance guy. I have to do all the standard, repairs and things like that. And it turns out that one day I was tracking a circuit that I had to isolate and going through proper lockout and tagout safety procedures, going into a panel. And then, when something's on, when you're told that it's off, that gives you pause. Right? So I have to start questioning what's going on because now my information's not jiving. And lo and behold, the long and short of it, through inquiry, I find out that, nope, that system is on. It's supposed to be on. Don't worry, it's on. Now everything's safe. Get back to work.
Right.
Okay, roger that.
So that's used like for submarine communication, right?
At the very least,
At the very least.
that's if we look on the pros list. There's pros and cons to everything in life.
Yeah. What's the con?
But there's all kinds of other science that says that ELF and human brain frequencies like to interact. And boy, does it sure seem like the folks on this planet are just out of their minds as of late.
So you think they might be bouncing it off the ionosphere?
I think it's possible. I mean, there are other devices like HARP that are made to do things to the ionosphere to bounce things off of them.
Right. Yeah, perfect.
So I have been telling folks that, each of these items is a system in and of itself that can do a multitude of things. It's also a component when you add it to another system that exists on the planet, and you can create bigger systems.
Right. So it's part of a larger system that they have.
I believe so.
It's probably the mothership of the system, though, because they can hide it down there.
Mm-hmm. It's actually just an old piece of the ship down there. I believe that we turned on the bigger problem in 2011, which was the ice cube neutrino detector, which is also a play with words. I've also disclosed what that's really doing.
Yeah, what's that doing?
The detector itself is a massive array of what they call DOMs, digital optical modules that are embedded in the ice. The ice being, like I mentioned before, 10,300 feet tall. So that's all ice before you get down to dirt. So they drill the ice, they make a hole that goes down darn near 2 miles, and then they drop a cable down there with a whole bunch of these DOMs spaced out on it. And then all of these holes and cables are spaced out all over the surface of the ice, making a massive, massive array. Now, what they're presenting it as is a detector, that when a neutrino comes and contacts the nucleus of an atom, it ejects out a new particle called a muon, as well as a blue flash of light that then gets detected by the DOM. That's what they're saying. What I presented, documented, is that the DOM is also designed to have a transmit ability that they're not discussing. Each DOM, which there's 5,160 DOMs embedded in the ice, each DOM has the ability to transmit 2,047 volts. That, my friends, is a massive phased array antenna that can also transmit. I know oftentimes the first thing people ask me when I say that, they'll go, well, what does that mean that it does? It means it can do a lot more than what they said. It means they're lying. It means, when the government walks up and goes, what do you mean you want to see my bullet holder, my bullet carrier? But it turns out it's a gun. They don't tell you it's a gun. They like to call it a bullet carrier. Oh, this is just a thing I carry my bullets around in. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. It's a passive thing. Well, it turns out that the ice cube neutrino detector isn't just a listening passive device. It also transmits at a massive power level. And then the question is, where does that go? And you start adding it to things like ELF and other systems like HARP on the planet, and we have to really question the technologies around us, and I guess to say the captains of the ship, so to say. The ship isn't necessarily bad. The rules aren't necessarily bad. It's the captain of the ship that runs it aground.
Yes. So it's been 10 years since you were there. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make an assumption here that they're using every year another project comes in, a science project comes in, and it's all new people, right? They're probably quite a turnover, I would imagine. There,
you'd be surprised that the winter staff doesn't turn over that much.
Yeah,
there's a gentleman who holds the record for doing 15 winters, and there's some close competition.
Tribe is probably beautiful.
It has its pros and cons.
Yeah, not about that cold though.
Understood.
Is there a story that I heard about a guy that you guys had used cables in the winter to get from building to building in case you have a whiteout, and some guy was going from one building to another. I don't know if it was at your base or the Mercado, but he never made it. You know this story?
I don't know this story. That actually sounds like lore. It doesn't sound true, or I feel like I would have heard it. I don't think anybody walked away and got lost. At least not I would say not in any of the American facilities that I'm aware of. And I would tell you that we actually don't use the cables. That's not true.
Okay.
I wish
Yeah, cleared
there was
that up.
there was one time when I showed up in the summer season. We had a storm that they were calling Death Claw. Actually, it was a rough storm. It was whiteout, but they only ran one line, and it went from the elevated station to the summer camp. That was it. And the reason they don't run the lines because in those whiteout conditions, the heavy equipment can still go around and work, but it won't see the lines. So they're just going to get torn out by heavy equipment.
Yeah, makes sense. So is there, I'll just cut to the chase. Um, is there a secret base near you there that you were maybe aware of?
I think the South Pole Station is the secret base. I think it's operating under false pretenses. I think this is the devil in the details of what compartmentalization of information and need to know basis is.
Right.
I think because of what I've done for living in so many other facilities, that when I show up to some place and I start seeing that there's a compartment here and a compartment here and a compartment here, none of these people have any idea what anybody else is doing. Nobody's talking to each other. Everybody thinks that this whole place is here for them. Everybody's being deceived.
And you're pretty much in a really pretty good position being a maintenance guy because, I mean, super valuable
great.
guy and have to let you into a lot of places that they don't want to.
Absolutely. Yep. There was the computer facility for the comms, the satellite connections, effectively the data stream of the South Pole Station, right? All of these guys were former military comms guys. And former's a loose term. They announced themselves as former. But I was a maintenance guy, so I have to go in there and check every day on everything, every spot, right? I did due diligence to silently approach, charge into that room every day. And every single day they were freaking out, turning off monitors. What are you doing here? You know, trying to be cool, calm, and collective. But it was like, give me a break.
Very cool. I'm glad you
I'm
did
not
that.
a knucklehead.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I wonder what they were doing. I wonder what they were doing.
Yeah, what do military comms guys do at a subterfuge facility that can transmit more than what they say they can transmit?
Well, I mean, the long and short of it is, it sounds a lot like a mind control operation.
That's what I think.
Yep. And that also explains a lot of the aberrant behavior that's been going on now, which, you know, you can actually see how it's increased, you know, by going back through looking at old news reports and things. It's shocking what's going on right now in the
Yeah, there's
world.
like a mania right now, and Jay, you understand the energies of these things. I know you've been into this for many decades, so I feel that, like, you know, if we look at the Earth, right, just as the giant electrical dynamo that it is that makes this magnetic field, here I was, 90 degrees south for a year. That's a very specific spot in this magneto, so to say. And now if they have this facility set up there, and if what they're doing with this application of energy is, you know, targeted to that node of energy, I think it's one of these spots where, like Nikola Tesla had stated, that there are places on this planet that are better for working with energy than others. I would imagine that both the South Pole and the North Pole would be high on that list of places that manipulating energy gets you a higher reaping or something.
Especially 10,000 feet up. Oh my God. It's just like, I mean, that's it. And if you understand the planetary dynamics, it's a very nice place to be because you're not getting interfered by the Van Allen belt at all. And so, and in some ways, now that I'm thinking about it, you could use the Van Allen belt because you're not being affected by it. You could bounce stuff in or put stuff into the Van Allen belt from the South Pole quite easily.
It's funny that you're saying that because it's also part of my research that I'm digging into and getting intel on. Is it actually looks like this facility is, you know, again, multifaceted, but add to the list interstellar communication.
Yep, that's what I think.
Yep, that seems to be more along the lines of what I'm gathering from folks. Is it looks like it is very much
Yep.
our Earth-based comm system for what we have going on out there.
I would have to 100% agree. My new emerging theory after 35 years of research and working with, a lot of the top guys in the alternative research field is that there is I forget his name now, the Russian guy, Kardashian. He came up with the three types of civilization. One is a civilization that has technology that can control a planet. That's type one. Type two has the technology that can control a solar system. And type three is technology that can control an entire galaxy. And my contention is, after all these years, is that we live on a planet in a solar system that has a type two civilization in it. It's on every planet, every hard planet, all the moons. It's under the sea. It has bases under the ocean. It has high technology, but it hides it in different ways, so you don't really know what you're looking at. A lot of it's just hollowed out asteroids. Actually, it looks like ships. They don't look like ships, and they do that not to hide, they do that because it's just easier to build the ships that way. And I think Antarctica is the portal between our emerging type 1 civilization and this type 2 civilization, which does not, my theory is that the type 2 civilization has become very unhappy with the managers of this planet. And they think the managers of this planet are wrecking their farm, that we are their farm, and they think that this farm is getting wrecked. Maybe it is, I don't know. And I think that they're doing some kind of intervention. And I think Antarctica is the most important place on this planet for this interaction. And I think there's probably a secret base, even somewhere nearby where you were, where they're blasting off and going. They're not using things that make noise, or they're electrogravitic, their machines, so you would never hear. You'd hear a loud zzz, but that's all you would hear. And you probably, with cloaking technology, I know they have, you wouldn't even see them. So
it's funny hearing you say that. I wonder now. There were times that I was walking around outside. I'd have to go from building to building to do my job, all my gear on, and sometimes there'd be like a blowing wind, and the snow would be moving laterally. It doesn't fall down. It just moves with the blowing wind, and it would make these cool patterns on the ground in the snow, sastrugi, and then the snow would be going in between it. And I used to like looking at that. I mean, there wasn't a lot to look at, so that was what you get to look at. But on a particular times, it would
sound to me like water was running, and it made me freak out a couple of times because it was like it really sounded like a babbling brook. And I wonder if it has to do with like these energies that you're saying as well, like what I would sometimes call sizzling when the auroras were around. Maybe there was this other sound going on with some other phenomenon that I wasn't seeing that could have been anything, could have been a ship going by from what you're saying, it sounds like,
Yeah, no, they by then they had perfected the chameleon technology. They use cameras and monitors, and you coat the outside of the ship with camera monitors. Essentially, they've gone way beyond this now. They can actually completely make a ship invisible now. But back in those days, this is what they were using. I think it was called chameleon, because you look and you could see it with the right conditions. It looks sort of like the Predator, a little kind of wavy thing. You can see it under the right conditions, but if you're not looking and staring at it, you won't be able to see it. And I've seen them here where I live in southern Colorado. I've seen them up in the sky.
Yep. I just saw at the store the other day, I saw one of these new foldable phones, right, where the screens fold, and it's not even glass. It's like a film. It's this film that they have now that's the screen, right? So now just think of how close we are, right? That this film will soon be able to be wrapped on anything, similar to like you can wrap a decal around a car now.
Yeah.
So just like you're saying, just imagine this same film can be wrapped around a vehicle, but now that film is a screen and you can present anything you want.
That's exactly what they're doing. So the
Yep,
camera's
exactly.
looking this way, shooting what's behind the vehicle, and then
Yep.
broadcasting it here in the front. So when you're
Mhm.
looking, you're actually seeing the phone post and the
Yep.
street and everything behind the car. And it's a really incredible optical illusion. There's a great book about it. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. I'll try to remember. But anyway, that's what I think is going on. I think there might be. Let me ask you this: How about, did you ever hear any talk about expeditions that are going out looking for? I know they're looking for
Oop, I
meteorites.
lost you at Did You Ever Hear?
Pardon me.
Come in, Jay. I lost you at Did You Ever Hear?
Can you hear me now? Wonder what's going on.
Oh, there you are. You're back. I lost you at Did You Ever Hear?
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Let me see what this says. For some reason, I got an unstable. Should be fine. Okay. Yeah, I got an unstable internet connection there. Okay. Did you ever hear any like shop talk about expeditions going out and looking for things that are, out in the area around the base, like archaeology digs or anything like that?
I didn't hear about any archaeology digs, but we were in the summer season present for quite a few expeditions that were coming over ice to us. So we got to meet
Where were
those
they coming
guys
from?
from the coast, some from McMurdo. I forget. There's the Moon Regan expedition was like some vehicle that they built that sat on 3 skis. It was almost like they took a cockpit of a plane, mounted it onto 3 skis, and then stuck a propeller behind it, and then skimmed across the ice all the way to the South Pole. So those guys showed up, and they told us about their story getting there. And then there was some other Toyota Hiluxers that they hot rodded these Toyota Hiluxes to go over the ice, and those guys showed up. And then there was the USAP program, the United States Antarctic program, was doing practicing what they call a traverse for moving stuff over the ice instead of just using the Hercs. So we received those guys as well in our summer season. So these are all people that had gone over the ice. January 1st, we celebrated New Year's with, there was an Austrian Olympian. He won a whole bunch of gold medals. Herman, they called him the Herminator at the time, was his nickname. And he and his crew had skied across and were there for New Year's, and we had snuck over to their camp. We weren't supposed to be there, and we had made a giant ice luge, and we were having cocktails with the traversers and stuff.
Must be some tough guys.
Yeah, we snuck out booze and stuff to them. We were told we weren't supposed to go there, but it was New Year's, and
Yeah, sure.
the maintenance crew was friendly.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, like, what's the weirdest thing that you saw when you were there?
I think I saw a UFO actually.
Oh,
When I was walking back from the dark sector, which is a science lab area. I was doing my rounds, heading back to the facility, and the snow was blowing from my left, which would be what we called grid north for our directions,
Yeah, right.
and it's the windward direction of the station. I looked up to get my view up over the ice that was blowing, and from the left, and again, consider we're at 10,300 feet of elevation and nothing obstructing the view. So when I say from horizon to horizon, I'm talking about a great distance. But I saw this giant flaming ball, which I thought was a giant meteor, but it went from my left all the way over the elevated station, all the way to the other horizon in a pin straight line. It never went down. And that's what leads me to believe that it was controlled flight, that it wasn't a meteor, or I would have seen it go down and hit the ground somewhere. Right. Or it was like the closest near miss of our planet getting hit by an asteroid.
That would have been big news.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen stuff where they talk about, historically, big impacts. They say something, if it was, 30 feet in diameter and hit the planet, it was like a game changer for the Earth.
Yep.
And this thing was easily, I don't know, 100 feet in diameter or something, and it was just going across the sky in a complete pin straight line. Didn't drop.
Did it have like heat waves coming off of it?
I didn't see it like that. I saw it. It was close enough to where it looked to me like I could see the detail of all the flames like rolling around the surface of the ball, and then there was a trail to the rear of it that was still like the flames being forced off by the velocity, and then that I would say took like almost 1/3 or the front end of the trail, and then behind that there was tons of like billowing smoke, like massive amounts of smoke and stuff like that. So it was leaving this really crazy trail. Everything about it was weird looking. And then, like I said, to go from that left horizon to that far right horizon, the speed at which it did it, and the fact that it never went down. I mean,
Was the smoke dark or light?
it was dark.
It was
But
dark.
again, it was nighttime at South Pole.
Oh, okay.
So it's like,
Yeah.
it's everything was shades of dark.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Well,
The white snow looked dark.
I learned more in the last 45 minutes than I knew about Antarctica my whole life. Actually,
Oh, geez, yeah.
I learned, yeah, very good. Hey, well, listen, Eric, it's been really good having you on. I've been
Thank you, Jay.
trying to get you on for a while, and I'm just so curious about Antarctica and still would like to visit. And there is a group that does hike in. I know you're right. They land somewhere near and they hike in. I think every year it costs like $15,000 to join them, something like that. So
That's also what I'm trying to impress upon people is that this it's propaganda, it's programming, right?
yeah,
Everyone is already programmed to think you're not allowed to go to Antarctica, and that's not true. They have to change their perspective. Poor people are not allowed to go to Antarctica.
yes,
It's a rich man's playground.
yeah,
Rich people go there all summer long. They fly to the South Pole, they visit. I've seen people bring their children there, which I blew my mind. It agitated me to put your children in such harm's way. But people do that.
So how would you book a flight to the base? How would somebody go about it?
I guess I could check some photos for the names on the planes. I don't remember the names off the tops of my head. I do
Where do they
know.
take off from? Like South Africa or
I believe they come out of New Zealand.
New Zealand?
I think so. And then, yeah, that would make the most sense to me. I mean, that's where the Antarctic program's flying out of. I don't know of people that are coming unsupported from other directions over the continent.
Did it seem like there was too much cargo coming in for the amount of people and the amount of things that were going on?
Technically, yes. Great question. Because there already was decades worth of food on site for the staff that they have.
Yeah.
For sure. There was way more materials there than needed. And it's par for the course. I mean, I also look for peculiar facilities. So I always look for extra water, extra power, extra ability to move air. And you're right, with the materials of food and stuff like that, it was in excess for sure. They're flying in new stuff every year and just stacking it up and stacking it up and stacking it up. I don't think the food that we ate while I was there, I don't think I saw anything that had been expired after 2006. Everything's already expired. It's old to begin with.
What do they do with it?
Yeah.
Just throw it out in the ice?
They pile it up on what they call the berms. Literally, they just take pallets and start stacking stuff out on top of the ice. The ice literally keeps encroaching and growing up. The berms go deep, 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 deep into the ice now. And there was like recon going on when we were there in the summer season. They were going to like a berm and digging down and being like, all right, let's just reinvent. What do we have here? Like, that's what they were doing. Like, there's just stuff from there from years that they don't even know that's in the berms.
Wow. And there's no wildlife at all, right? There's nothing.
Nothing at South Pole. There's nothing alive at South Pole. Mother Nature's trying to kill everything there.
Yeah. Well, you're actually in some ways you're closer to outer space. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, was breathing difficult when you got there?
Extremely. Yes, it was destroying. It was the atmosphere is extremely thin. So the actual elevation is 10,300 feet, but because of the atmospheric conditions, they would give it to us like a, it's almost like giving you with like wind chill for the cold. They would give us what they called a physio altitude. Usually it was in the range of like, say like 10.8 to 11.3 is what it would feel like on your body. So sometimes if the physio altitude was 11.3, I mean, you would feel it. You'd wake up, you'd start getting ready for the day, and already you're like, wow, I'm hurting. What's going on? You get into the galley to grab your coffee, and you look up at the screen, and it says we're at a physio altitude of 11.3, and you're like, that's why I'm already getting my ass kicked today. So
Oh
you
yeah,
totally
I've been
felt
at
it.
12,000 feet in the Andes, and
Mhm.
oh man, and I
The,
live
the
at
doc,
8,500. My house is at 8,500, and I went to 12,500 and 13,000 feet, and uh, it nearly killed me. I mean, it nearly killed me. I had to shoot a film, and I wasn't ready for the altitude, and I brought with me like hundreds of pounds of equipment, and we're up in the Andes shooting, and literally, had to lay down every 10 minutes just to recover from the
yep.
altitude. I can't even imagine what it's like, especially coupled with the cold. And
Mhm.
honestly, I would think that the altitude may even be a little higher than that because of the thin atmosphere anyway, but
Mhm.
it's even thinner at the South Pole. So it's like a double whammy there.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And then to add to that, I mean, if we want to talk about all the extremes of the atmosphere, it's also 0% humidity.
Right.
So you're dehydrating like a lunatic, and people don't realize how taxing that is on both the body and the mind. You start getting really like straight up dumb. So we'd be working outside in the cold and the elements, and if you're getting cold, if you're getting dehydrated, we would call it you get the stupids, right? I'd be working with you, right? And I'd be like, "Hey Jay, hand me the screwdriver." And in front of you there's going to be, an open end wrench, a screwdriver and a pair of channel locks. And you're going to sit there staring and
Trying to decide
staring,
what a screwdriver.
trying to remember which one's the screwdriver, and that's when I got to go, hey Jay, you got the stupids, bro. Coffee break, let's go. Bring you inside, warm up, have some coffee, get some sustenance in your fuel tank, eat some food. Like a lot of the stuff they were teaching us was because of the environment. You had to drink copious amounts of water, and we were eating 15 to 20,000 calories of food a day and losing weight.
Whoa,
You
really?
know, so everything for us was we had to become very familiar with our bodies and how we felt and functioned, because that would be your demise if you're not drinking correctly, if you're not eating enough food to keep that fire going in that heat. Like your body will shed BTUs, so to say. All that stuff that's in you, if it's cold, you'll be surprised when that furnace fires up how warm you can get. But your body's eating itself to do
Yep.
that,
Yes, it is. Exactly
you
right.
know?
Yep.
So we had to feed our fuel tank like savages.
Wow. Well, Eric, really, really appreciate you coming on Reality Check. And it's been fun and learned a lot, like I said. And now I just learned a bunch more. So, folks, thanks for watching. I'm Jay Weidner. Been here with Eric Hecker and Adventures in the Antarctic. And thanks for watching. And I'll be back soon, I hope. Hang on.